In 2002, a very influential report under the auspices of the United Nations came out from a group of Arab intellectuals. They identified 3 gaps that were causing the Middle East to lack progress. They talked about a freedom gap, and indeed, questions of governance and questions of freedom are still very much on the agenda. They talked about a gap in women's empowerment, and clearly, no society does well when 50% of its population does not do well. Indeed, I've often said that if I could wave a magic wand and do one thing, I would empower women. Because many of the social ills that we associate with the most difficult places in the world, if you educate women, they will not have 11 children and they won't have their first child at 12. If you educate women, they will not be trafficked into human slave trade. If you educate women, they will find a way to take a little loan and employ an entire village. So the empowerment of women is something that the Middle East must simply undertake. But then there was also this third gap, the knowledge gap. The gap that has created a circumstance in which a place like South Korea, just a few decades ago, one of the poorest countries in the world, is now one of the most prosperous, where innovation and creativity and the ability to mobilize the people, the society, to create and innovate is the story of prosperity. Here in the Silicon Valley, we understand that story quite well. It's taken great universities like Stanford and, yes, Berkeley. It has taken people who had great ideas and were willing to go out and take a risk on their great ideas. It took venture capitalists. It took angel investors who were willing to back those great ideas despite the risk. The Silicon Valley is an ecosystem. And one of the questions that we need to ask when we look at places like the Middle East is how do we put in place those elements of an ecosystem that can one day be the basis for prosperity and peace and a more decent life for the people.